I wanted to make a video that kind of discussed and showed the different aspects of the meal plans that I sent out in the puppy nutrition, the attachments that were at the bottom of the puppy nutrition email. There were 3 different attachments. One would have been, it looks like this. It's the recipe that the puppies will come home on. And I suggest continue feeding this for at least a couple of months, till they're about 4 months old. There's also the growth and development recipe plan, which you can see, there's the adult maintenance plan and the growth and development plan. You can see, the difference on the front page there. So the growth and development plan, I would say, it works really well between the 4-month period and the year period. So we'll go over this a little bit more as we're discussing this one, because some of the items in there are interchangeable. The adult maintenance meal plan is perfect for, after they're a year old, they can continue eating it for forever. And then at that point, you'll be a little more comfortable with the recipes and making them, and then you can even change things up, later. So we'll set the adult one to the side. Also, one other thing I forgot to send out when I sent the email is there is an ingredient substitution guide. So some of the ingredients in the meal plan, you might feel like, oh, I have a hard time, finding that item, or I don't, particularly want to find that item. So there are some definite substitutions that you can do. You don't have to follow this exact recipe, to the T. I will send the substitution guide out, and then as you look at things, you can go, okay, I have a hard time finding duck neck, but I can find turkey neck. Turkey neck's pretty easy to find it. Winco Foods, and maybe even Albertsons might carry turkey neck, but I know Winco Foods does for sure. So I will attach this to the email as well. Let's see, what was the other thing? So in the puppy recipe that they'll be on when they come home, some have asked about where to source the heart, liver, and kidney. So the liver is fairly easy to find if you have an ethnic market near you. Like we have Cardenas near us, and you can find beef liver there very easily. We also have a health food store called Organic Roots, and they actually carry all of the supplies near me. So you'll have to do a little digging, at your local stores. Maybe call around and just ask who might carry or have the organ meat, as well as the heart. I prefer to order mine online. There is a company, and it might even be listed on here. I don't remember if I listed it on the email or not, but it's called North Star Bison, and they have excellent quality organ meat, and they have bison, elk, beef, and a few other proteins that they sell there, turkey and such. It's like you get it and it's like, wow, this looks beautiful and it smells really nice. You can just tell it's a very high quality product. It's completely grass-fed, grass-finished. It's a very ethical company. So I enjoy buying my stuff from them, but I buy in bulk because I have more dogs, and so I'm able to get free shipping. So shipping is a big part of the cost when you're buying things online, obviously. There's a company called Raw Feeding Miami. I think I mentioned them in my email as well. They have reasonable prices, but the shipping is high. So it kind of, counterbalances that. So if you can find the items locally, you're not going to be paying shipping, or if you can buy in bulk. But I have an extra freezer, so, it saves money because I can buy in bulk, I get free shipping, I can buy the larger portions and then cut them down and use them as I need them. And so anytime you can buy in bulk, you're just going to be saving more money in the long run. A lot of the items that I'm going to talk about in the recipes, I actually do buy at Costco. Again, buying in the bulk does save money, but you can find similar prices at Winco Foods, has decent prices, Smart and Final, and Food for Less. So they're not going to have, the organ meats and the hearts and stuff like that, but some of the, like I said, the ethnic stores near you might have it. Some of the health food stores, or you can even try to find a local farmer rancher that even might source it. My farmer's market, actually on the weekends, they sell all kinds of stuff. There's a local farmer there that sells, goat's milk and organ meat and different things. So, you might have to get a little creative, but at the end of the day, once you find your source, then you're done. It's easy. Every month you know where you're gonna go, or every other month. I make my batches of food that will last at least 2 months. I prefer to make closer to 3 months worth. Just because if I'm gonna be going through the process and getting everything out and doing it, I want it to last. So I don't wanna be getting this stuff out every weekend. So you don't have to do it that way. The recipes do come. The very last page of the puppy recipe breaks it down into a 30-day list. So it's real easy. You could just take this to the grocery store and say, oh, okay, I need 8 pounds of chicken thighs, 8 pounds of ground beef, and get all the items for at least a month's worth. Because most people that I know don't want to make it every day. But again, I have an extra freezer, so there's that. But, a lot of people have the room for a month's worth in their freezer. So, hopefully that would work for you. Let's see. Okay. So one of the things that you'll notice for the ingredients list, on the puppy recipe is it contains canned oysters. Canned oysters are a little hard to find. I buy them on Amazon when I want them. But the reason for the canned oysters is the zinc content. So if you look in the growth and development recipes, I asked the nutritionist to not include oysters because my dogs don't love them. I would rather feed a zinc supplement because again, if I can't get my dogs to eat them, the oysters aren't doing me any good. I will start the puppies on oysters so that they, do get a taste for them. My breeder, didn't feed raw to my dogs, so they didn't get used to that at a young age. But it doesn't mean they're always going to love them. They, in time may start turning their nose up at them, and you might have to do a zinc supplement as well. So if you'll see, in the growth and development recipe number 1 lists the zinc supplement. They're interchangeable. So if you don't want to do the canned oysters, do the zinc supplement from recipe 1 in growth and development. If in recipe 1 you don't want to do the zinc supplement and you find your dog loves the oysters, go ahead and switch out for the oysters. So the reason for the oysters is the zinc. So if you want to change that out, perfectly fine. The other item in the puppy recipe is canned salmon and water. So I have this from Costco, reasonably priced, but it's a lot, and the puppies only need for a 30. Let's see, this is 30-day supply. Oh, I guess, you know what? Technically, that is a 30-day supply. I was going to say they only need per day, and this takes me back to my other thought, but per day, they only need 1.5 ounces. So, again, my dogs are a little probably on the picky side. They don't like when I add the fish into the whole mix of raw food. So what I end up doing is I do my meat and my veg that has the supplements in it. And I mix that all together, and they're fine having the meat with the veg and the supplements and everything all mixed together. And then I put the fish on the side. So I do feed them fish still every day. But I will do, so you can do the salmon canned and then just, take the portion out that they need for that day, put a lid on it or in a bag and then stick it back in the fridge. But you can also change it out. My dogs really like this as well. It's mackerel from Trader Joe's. And it's a little less expensive than the salmon from Costco. Or if you don't want to buy in bulk from Costco. My dogs really like this. This is a good product as well. So the salmon and the mackerel, interchangeable. You know, the same exact amount that you would put for the salmon, you'll just go ahead and use mackerel, or you know, go ahead and do the salmon if they like that. And you can use fresh salmon as well if your dog is real spoiled. Let's see, in one of the recipes, the recipe number 1 in the growth and maintenance calls for sardines. So I really like Trader Joe's sardines. They have salted and unsalted. And for puppy growth and development, they need a little bit of salt. So the salt is okay, but I don't like, you know, it's not good for them to have too much salt. So as they get older, I switch to the unsalted, and it's actually really hard to find unsalted sardines. So Trader Joe's has a really good one. And it's, I believe, like $1, you know, per can. And this is 2.96, almost 3 ounces, or no, it's 3.75. That's drained weight. So if you're only using, you know, 1.5 ounces, it'll last you for a couple days. So that was that. So I'm trying to think. Oh, the other thing is in the puppy recipe, you're going to notice that it calls for cal bone meal. And in recipe number 1, it calls for that same bone meal. But in recipe number 2, let's see if I can grab it here. In recipe number 2, you'll see 3 items down is duck or chicken neck, and it does not call for the bone meal. So in recipe number 2, I asked her to, you know, do 1 recipe with the bone meal and 1 recipe with bone, and that way you can kind of see the difference. My dogs love bones, like it's their favorite part of the meal. When I put down the bowl with the meat and everything and the fish and the bones in it, all of my dogs eat the bones first. And the bones are really good for their teeth, to help clean their teeth. So I highly suggest doing bones, but you know, it is a little more work. I sent, or I attached, I believe, the video of me cutting up the duck. So that's where I get my bone content from, is cutting up the duck. You can do the duck necks, the turkey necks, feet. I do duck feet also. I don't always only use the duck that I cut up for the bones. Sometimes I'll go ahead and, you know, get the turkey necks, like I said, from Winco. Or some of the ethnic stores also have the feet, duck feet, chicken feet, you know, and so forth. So the feet are actually really good. They contain a high amount of collagen, so, you know, good for their joints and such. So you can use a variety of bones. So again, you'll see, you know, the recipe number 2 is 6.35 ounces, okay, a day of bone. But you have to understand that bone, like duck and chicken necks, are 50% bone, 50% meat. So recipe number 2 has a little less meat content than recipe number 1, because it's taking the necks into consideration. So it's not an equal swap, but you can definitely do the math and go, oh, okay, you know, if I'm supposed to be feeding, you know, 10 ounces of meat, and this recipe calls for 10 ounces and this recipe calls for 8 ounces because it has the added bone in it, well, then just go ahead and feed 8 ounces of the meat and the added bone instead of the bone meal. So if it's confusing, please just give me a call. I can explain it in greater detail or give you exact figures for your dog. So, you know, never hesitate to reach out. I may not be available right that second, but if you send me a text, you know, I will give you a call as quickly as possible and walk you through some of the numbers. But don't give up because you're overwhelmed. As soon as you go through the process, you're gonna go, oh, okay, you know, that's easily understood and easy enough to change out. So I think that was everything. The puppy recipe does call for Mary Ruth's iodine drops, And then recipe number 1 of the growth and maintenance, it calls for the Now kelp powder. They're both iodine sources, so it doesn't matter which one you use. You can use the drops, you can use the powder. I typically use the powder, but I did get the drops, you know, to follow the puppy recipe as closely as possible so that I could kind of walk you guys through it. But again, if you just look, you know, this one has the powder, this one has the drops. You can swap them out equally if you prefer the drops or if you prefer the powder. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started in making the food. Some of the things that I like to do before actually, you know, getting started is make sure I have everything that I need. When I pull the meat out of the refrigerator, it has a limited period of time to process it and get it back into the freezer. So go ahead and get all your, you know, stuff set up. I have a blender, I have a grinder. This grinder I got off of Amazon. It was like $60. It works really well. It's nothing special, but it works really well. Any blender. A scale, again, I got off of Amazon. I think it was like $10 and works really well. A big mixing bowl to mix it all together. Have all of your ingredients out. I have some items that were frozen set out to start thawing. I process my vegetables and supplements first because they don't go bad. I can mix them all together, set them to the side, then move on to my meat, you know, and get that processed quickly and get it all mixed together and then back in the freezer in baggies. So I already have my butternut squash roasted, 350 for like 45 minutes. It's super soft, so I'm just going to scoop it out, you know, put it in the blender with my green beans, with my supplements, and maybe a little water, you know, to get it to a good consistency where it'll blend and mix well. And then I'll come back and get started on the meat. Okay, so I have scooped out the butternut squash into the blender, mixed with the green beans, and then I added all of the supplements. So I wanted to show you, I got all the supplements off of Amazon because I figured it'd be, you know, kind of easier to show you the Amazon products. If you want to get a different one in your health food store, of course you're more than welcome to. So that's the iodine drops, just dropped it straight into the blender. The bone meal powder. The iron is actually a capsule. So, you know, just split it apart, pour it in there, you know, discard the capsule. The manganese is a tablet. So I use my pestle mortar to grind it up. You can use a coffee grinder or some other form just to get it into a powder and then add it in there. The iron. The things that I don't add is the oil. So the hemp seed oil and the vitamin E. The vitamin E you add 1 drop a day. So you only need to add it into their breakfast or dinner. And the hemp seed oil is only half of a teaspoon once a day. So I mix these in individually every single day. The other thing I add that I haven't talked about yet is the probiotic. My favorite is Phytos Flora, and it's from Adored Beast. I'll attach a link to it so that you can see. This is a super good one, but you know, there's a bunch out there. So again, go ahead and pick the one that you think is best. Let's see. So the supplements and the vegetables are all processed. I'm just going to leave them here sitting to the side while I do the meat. So I purchased these skin on with the bone chicken thighs from Costco. The whole package was $10 and this is plenty for a month's worth. So I do cut the skin off. I just use my kitchen scissors, cut the skin off, and then I will cut the bone out, but I save the bone. So I can either use the bone for their bone content. So in recipe 1, it calls for the chicken necks. You can use the chicken thigh bone if you'd like, or you can use it it makes really good bone broth. So cut your meat off. You have your little bone, you can set it to the side. And then I use a grinder for all of my meat. So as I'm gonna cut the chicken, I'll probably cut the thigh one more time, cut it down to, you know, a decent size, and then I'll go ahead and grind it up. So I'm gonna process all of that, and then I'll show you how I work my grinder. Okay, so the chicken is done being ground. I'm gonna go ahead and stick that in the fridge while I finish with the heart and the kidney and the liver. I'm gonna cut them all down to a good size that will be easy to go in the grinder, and then we'll get that going, and then we'll mix it all together. And by the way, we will go ahead and link the Amazon links in the description for the different items, the grinder and the scale and different things like that. And the knife and the scissors that I use are Cutco. They're really good, so it's very helpful to have a nice sharp pair of knives. All right, so I've got the heart all cut up into, you know, good sized pieces. This is the liver and kidney. It looks like a lot because it is. It's probably enough for about 3 times the recipe. So what I do is I cut it all up, I grind it, and then I weigh out what I need for this particular recipe, and I put the rest in the freezer to use for later. So after I do that, I get my the weight that I need. So for this particular recipe, for the heart, it calls for 5.2 pounds. For the liver and kidney, it's 1.9 pounds. So after I get it all ground up, I'll put it on the scale, and then I'll start adding everything to the mixing bowl and get it mixed together. Okay, so got my ingredient list here, and I'm going down the list of everything that we have ground and pureed, and I think we're ready to mix it all together. So we have the 1.9 pounds of liver and 1.9 pounds of kidney here in this bowl. We have the 7.9 pounds of the chicken thighs, 7.9 pounds of the ground beef, and the 5.2 pounds of beef heart. We have the 2.1 pounds of butternut squash, the 1 pound of green beans, and all the supplements here. So we're gonna go ahead and put them in the bowl, mix it all together, and then I'll come back and show you how I portion everything. Oh, and I ground this chicken, and I, saved the bones for later. You can buy ground chicken if you would like. Makes it a little bit easier. My husband is reminding me to mention that in between each of these items that have been ground up, we thoroughly sanitize and clean everything. Keep it all nice and fresh and clean. And rinse out the, wash out the grinder and all the tools that go with that in between each meat item. All right, final step. Everything's ground up, mixed together. This is approximately 1 month's worth. Again, this is for a 10-pound puppy, what your puppy will approximately be going home and for the first, little bit. So the amount of everything will adjust, with time as they grow. They obviously need more food, so it won't always be a month's worth. But for, when they come home and for a while it will be. What I like to do is separate it into Ziploc bags. That will be enough for a couple days worth. I do 2 days worth. So with this particular recipe, you're gonna feed your puppy around 15 ounces of the meat product, and then you're gonna add the salmon, oysters, and oil to the side. And so I've put in approximately 30 ounces into each of these. I did them into 2 different size bags so you can kind of see what they look like. Personally, I like the bigger bag. It's easier to scoop into. It also lays real flat and thaws a lot easier. So I'll show you what that looks like. Turn my scale on. Make sure I'm on ounces. And I just start adding to the bag until I get to that 30-ounce mark. Okay, so we zip it up, get all the air out. I like to do 2 days worth, that way I'm not having to pull it out every day, but it's also not going bad sitting in the fridge. So I always have one ready to go, and then I'll the next day pull one out of the freezer to start thawing for the next day. So there's almost always at least 2 in my refrigerator. One that I'm currently using, one that I'm starting to de-thaw for the next day. I press it nice and flat because then as you, stick it in the fridge, it thaws nicely, and then you can just scoop out of it and stick straight into their bowl. So that's what it looks like. I'll get it all bagged up and show you approximately the freezer space that it's gonna take up. All right, the final product. This is how much it's gonna take up freezer space for about a month's worth. Some people I've seen use little Tupperware containers that you can get. They're freezable. I know Amazon has them. I've just always done Ziploc bags because they lay flat, and so I can kind of stack them and make them work in between, other things that I have. So, I hope this has helped. And if you have any questions, please feel free to always reach out in whatever way suits you. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the recipes and the tutorial.